Welcome back. This is Equipped for Battle. I'm Carly. Today I'm going to tell you why crystals, smudging, and New Age practices are opening demonic doorways into your life. If you haven't yet, please check out my testimony videos because I actually think it's going to give you some insight into why I'm making this video and why I know so much about this. Crystals, smudging, and New Age practices aren't as New Age as you would think. There's evidence of these practices being used in ancient Egypt and ancient Samaria, and especially in ancient Sumerian civilization, they kind of combine crystals and smudging with magic. Kind of like today, they used crystals for healing and spiritual alignment and also to align your chakra, which is a belief that there is an aura and there's energy around you that you need to stabilize, and crystals can help you stabilize them. Whether you believe in chakras or not, this is just something that they're used for and what they used to be used for as well. In ancient time, these practices were used to give spiritual enlightenment, to talk to the dead, to talk to spirits, for divination purposes, and also for healing power. So already right off the bat, when we're talking to spirits and we're talking about divination and we're talking about healing power from crystals, smudging, and New Age spiritualistic practices, you already know where this is headed because that's exactly what God said to stay away from. I myself used crystals on a daily basis not too long ago. I always had a crystal on me for protection. I always had them tucked away in little spots in my house for protection. Anything that you could think of using a crystal for, that's what I use them for. I had a book that outlined everything that the crystal is used for, what energy you can use it for. And I just this was like my religion in a way that I used, and I glorified these crystals to help me, and I gave them the power in my life to seek out answers and health that I really should have been seeking out from God. Not to mention I was involved in witchcraft at the time, so I was also using crystals for spells, which is actually very common. Moon water, if you're making moon water and you think it's just a holistic way to be healthy and give it to your plants for some water, that's witchcraft. You are conducting a spell. I also used these for divination purposes. That didn't really come through for me very often, but speaking to spirits did. And there's a certain stone, I'm not even going to go into it, there's a certain crystal that you can use for spiritual awakenings, and it opens your third eye, and this is your way of communicating with the spiritual realm. So needless to say, I was very much into this. I was very much involved in this spiritual practice, and whether you're kind of a beginner or you're diving deep into crystals and you think this is just a cool natural way to connect with Mother Earth, which I totally understand because I thought the same thing. But the thing is once you kind of put these above God, that's when demonic forces can enter and separate you and continue to separate you from God. Each time that I would talk to someone about the crystals or show them my collection or go to the crystals or learn how to use a crystal for a new way, every time I would go down for my meditations when I used crystals or try to speak to spirits through them, I was completely drained. And every time I did this and every time I would smudge the house to ward off evil spirits, every time I did that, it felt worse. And my husband and I would sit there and talk about it and just say, I thought smudging and crystals were supposed to clean our energy and protect us from these evil spirits, but we always said it just felt like that wasn't happening, that the spirits were either staying around and this stuff doesn't work at all, or it was opening the doorways for them to come through. Either way, it always felt worse, and we know this by now. It opens the doorways. It doesn't close them. The reason why these open doorways is because you're creating this idea and this idol in your mind that crystals, which are minerals from the earth, are powerful and that they're more powerful than God, because at a certain point you are going to crystals for help with health, with healing, to connect to your inner self. Whatever it is, whatever you think that you're using them for, you are going to them for answers. You are going to them and you're setting them higher than your relationship with God. Whether you believe in God or not, that is still what you're doing. And I can say this with confidence because that's exactly what I was doing. And it happens. And unfortunately, this has become such a popular practice that people, even well-meaning Christians, don't even know why it's bad anymore. It's so popularized. It's in TV commercials. It's on TV. It is everywhere. It's in songs. Every celebrity is talking about them. And it's literally just everywhere. And you feel like when it's pushed and pushed and pushed that this is a health-based practice and that good things can happen to you, when it's kind of wrapped with that little bow, it can be completely confusing to understand how can something that sounds so positive and so light and so forward thinking be a tie to demonic forces. I also remember during this time when I was really heavily involved in crystals that in the beginning I had nightmares every single night of demonic forces trying to get at me. And the more I had these nightmares, the more I would go and do my third eye chakra meditations with the crystals and try to understand why I was having these nightmares. So not only was I opening doorways in other spiritual ways, but I also was continually opening them by opening my third eye chakra, which is your spiritual chakra, and I was investigating and trying to create that doorway between me and whatever spirits were trying to communicate with me. But honestly, all it did was fling that door wide open, and it caused this communication between me and evil spirits that was very difficult to break. God does not want us to look towards other things, especially the created things that He created, and find resolution, find peace, find that communication with these things that have ties to demonic forces, other than seeking Him out in His heart and His knowledge and His well-being for us and His love. He doesn't want that. He wants us to come to Him with anything that we need. He wants a relationship with us. But instead, we're choosing these minerals that He created on earth, and we're elevating them to God status and idol status, and we're asking them for help. But the thing is, once you start doing the idolatry thing and divination and spiritual practices and opening your third eye chakra, you are giving it some kind of power, and through that unbelief of what God is capable of doing for you, you are separating yourself from God, and you are choosing these other things that you shouldn't be choosing. And what happens is the devil and his evil spirits are looking for these doorways to get into your life. And once you give them that permission through things like crystals, he is going to provide back what you've been looking for. The reason why he's going to pacify you and give you what you want and what you're asking for through the crystals and through these meditations where you're opening spiritual realms is because it's a foothold into your life. And the more that you notice things changing around you and you feel like these things are actually powerful in your life, the more you're going to go to them. The farther and farther away you are going to get from God, and the further and further away you're going to get away from any type of communication with Him. So the more that you understand and you see like, wow, these things are working in my life. I'm getting what I want. I'm feeling a little bit more peace. The smudging is working because whatever was happening at the time isn't there anymore. That momentary peacefulness that you feel in the moment is exactly what he's trying to do to pacify you, to make you think that these things are good and have a positive effect in your life. Why would he give you a good thing? Well, it's because it keeps you tethered to these evil practices and keeps the doorway open for demonic forces to come through. And what it does, you begin to continue to go to these things because you're getting what you want in the moment. And you're not looking ahead to your relationship with God and what that means, because you're getting and you're being pacified with what you're getting in the moment. Now, on the flip end of that, your relationship with God is becoming more and more distant because you're not trusting Him, you're not going to Him, and you're not asking Him for help in the issues that you're going to the crystals for. Not only that, but a lot of people are just using crystals for witchcraft purposes. I was doing it too. And you're purposely opening these doorways. You're purposely trying to talk to the spirits that you're opening through these doorways. But the issue with that is you think that you're talking to spirits, human spirits that need your help or want to communicate or whatever it is. But what you're actually doing is communicating with demonic forces who are trying to come through and mimicking and presenting themselves as good spirits. I don't know how many times in the Bible it actually says, beware of the spirits that you're contacting. Even test the angels if what they're telling you is not biblical. The devil can always present himself to us as an angel of light. We have to be aware. We have to be able to use discernment in these moments to say, kind of interesting how on the inside I feel like everything is falling apart, or I feel like I'm being surrounded by evil spirits. So I'm going to go get these crystals, I'm going to go get these smudge sticks, and I'm going to get rid of the evil in my life through these practices. In the meantime, on the inside, I'm going to do it. I'm not feeling a change. Maybe in the moment, but the next day I'm feeling it again. Something is around me. I'm going to go get crystals again. And you just keep going and going through these practices. Like, these are actually helping you. But really, what you're feeling on the inside, that you need to cleanse your house every so often, it's not normal to feel like you have to cleanse your house of evil spirits on a certain timeline. You shouldn't have to do it on a weekly, daily, monthly, yearly basis. It's just not normal. And what society has been very good at making you think is that they just come in, they kind of fly into your house, and then you got to cleanse your house and leave. The truth of the matter is, if you're not giving them a foothold into your life, then they're not going to stick around. That's why they call it a practice, I guess, because you continually have to use them to make yourself feel safe and make yourself feel good. But have you ever stopped to think, maybe they're just tricking me and making me think that I'm cleansing my house, but really it's doing the opposite. And maybe it's not normal that I have to keep using these things to keep evil spirits away. Maybe I need to look at a different solution to my problem. The last time I meditated with crystals and smudging was the time that I saw a demon in my basement with my own 2 eyes. It was the most terrifying experience I've ever been through. But it was a bunch of demonic nightmares and demonic attacks that I didn't link to these things, that I just thought I had an evil spirit around me, and I thought that these practices were keeping it at bay. I didn't realize that it was actually inviting it in further and further and further into my life, until God said, enough, this is what you're up against. And I saw what I was up against. And in that moment, I realized I should have listened to him that day, that morning, when he told me to throw it all out, and I didn't. And I decided to do one last meditation with my crystals. And he said, there you go. This is what you're up against. I didn't want to have to show you this, but I'm showing it to you. And I saw the demon for what it was, and I saw exactly what I was contacting with the crystals and the meditations and the New Age spiritualistic practices that I was doing. In that moment, I realized I have to throw it all out. I have to throw it out, and if I want to be rid of the spirits that I let into my life, I have to accept Jesus into my life, because he is the only way to break the chains of demonic attack. Now, if you are a Christian and you think these New Age spiritualistic practices are okay and they're not a sin and they don't invite evil spirits into your life, why do you think that? God clearly says in the Bible that you should stay away from these things. It's all over the Bible. Stay away from divination. Stay away from New Age spiritualistic practices. Stay away from praising anything. It's idolatry. So we need to stop telling people that it's okay to God, because it's clearly not if we read our Bible. And the thing is, a lot of people and a lot of well-meaning Christians keep saying it's a natural part of earth and it's a way for us to praise God because we're using his creation to create positive moments for us and healing and cleansing. God doesn't think that at all. God is watching you use rocks that he created to heal your body, and watching this relationship between you and him get further and further and further away from what it should be, which is a real relationship with you. And he's watching you go to these crystals that he created to make you feel better about something, when you should be going to God, the creator of the crystals, to make you feel whole and joy and peace and love again. Here's one more thing to throw at you. Especially if you're a Christian that thinks that crystals and smudging and New Age spiritualistic practices are okay. When God created Adam and Eve and he created the Garden of Eden, he told them they can do whatever they want. They can eat anything from the trees there, anything that was good, and they did. The one thing he said is to stay away from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This was also a natural thing that he put in the garden. But he still said to stay away from it. And what did they do? Well, we know the story of that, the fall of man. They went to it. They went to that to understand things instead of going to God and asking him for the understanding. Just like with crystals, we think that we can be the gods of our own universe in a certain way. I mean, I know that sounds a little extreme, but really think about it. We think we can control things in our life using these practices. Just like with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They wanted to be gods of their own universe, and they were talked into doing it by the devil. And when they ate the fruit, they understood good from evil, and it's exactly what God said that they shouldn't do. And instead of trusting God and trusting that relationship with Him, they put distance between themselves and God because of what they decided to use instead. And the reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of well-meaning Christians are saying that crystals are just part of the earth and they're part of God's creation, so they're beautiful to use in these spiritualistic practices. But so is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was also part of God's earth, but He still said to stay away from it. And we need to trust God when He says to stay away from something, because He never said the stuff wasn't real. He said to stay away. He said to stay away because it's going to give the devil a foothold into your life, and it's going to distance you from the love of God. So just because God created something doesn't mean that we should worship it. We should never worship something that is created by God. We should always worship the Creator. There are many places in the Bible that say to stay away from these type of practices, but there's one in particular that I think that is kind of hits the nail on the head, because how often do we see crystals worn on people? And I used to have them all the time. I used to have them in my pocket. And how often do we see people adorn themselves with crystals for protection or whatever they use it for? So I'm going to read something from Ezekiel 13:18, and it says this: "This is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to the women who sew magic charms on all their wrists. Will you ensnare the lives of my people, but preserve your own?" That's kind of just talking about how these women would adorn themselves with magical trinkets. And that's exactly what people do with the crystals. It's the same thing. And whether you believe it or not, you are still giving them power into your life. In the end, especially as Christians, we can't just take and pick apart what we want from the Bible and ditch what we don't like and just take in what we do like and then regurgitate that out into the world to make ourselves feel better and make other people feel more comfortable. Why on earth would you do that? Why would you even believe in God if you didn't believe what He said? There are certain moral standards that we need to practice. And when He says to stay away from these things, it's because you're creating a whole new religion out of them. And that means you're not putting your trust in God, and you're not putting your faith in God. You're not believing in His power. You're not believing in His love, and He's not believing in the word that He gave you, because you're picking and choosing what you want out of the Bible to make yourself feel better about it. But it's pretty cut and dry. You have to stay away from these things if you want a relationship with God. Like I keep saying, there's a reason you're watching my video, and it's because you're trying to figure out if you should ditch what you've been using, like crystals and smudging, because you feel like there's an evil around you, and you feel like it may be caused by these New Age spiritualistic practices. And I'm here to tell you, you can get out now. It may hurt you for a minute because you're throwing away hundreds of dollars of things that you've spent money on. It may hurt you because you have found identity in crystals and what they mean to you. And it will be a whole new way of living after you throw those things out. And that's a very daunting and very scary thing to face when you're faced with a decision to ditch who you think you've been and ditch what you think has power in your life and pivoting to what the promise of God has for you. It is not an easy decision to make, but it is the best decision that you'd ever make in your life. And if you ever want to feel the great abundance of love and hope that the crystals and smudging and New Age spiritualistic practices could never give you in a lifetime, turn to God, because He will give you all of that and so much more. Hey, this is Equipped for Battle. I'm Carly. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found the answers that you've been looking for. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. I'm making content all the time. Hit the bell icon for notifications, share this video if you need to, and comment down below. If you have any experience with this, if you have any questions, please comment down below. We're the body of Christ and we want to be there for each other. Please watch the next video. I'm going to talk about why mediums and psychics should probably not be the first thing you go to when you're trying to find guidance in your life.